In 1958, a tin of a Torah sweet cost 11 pence. Your nan kept one in every cupboard. Today, most Britons under 40 don't know what suet even is. But here's the twist. Food scientists at Leeds University recently proved that certain pre-war baking techniques create textures modern equipment simply cannot replicate. Number 12 on this list was quietly banned from school home economics classes in 1987. And number 3? Researchers at the Royal Society of Chemistry confirmed in 2012 that it produces a reaction no modern substitute can match. These 25 secrets were so effective that supermarket chains spent fortunes convincing mothers to buy boxed mixes instead. Because here's the truth nobody talks about. If you knew what your nan knew, half your baking aisle purchases would stay on the shelf. Stork changed its formula. McDougall's rebranded. Whole industries profited from us forgetting. Before we start, hit subscribe. Let's count down the 25 lost British baking secrets no modern cookbook will teach you. Number 25. Rubbing in with fingertips only. Before food processors and pastry blenders, your nan made perfect short crust with nothing but her hands. The rule was absolute. Only fingertips, never palms. Your palms are too warm. They melt the butter into the flour instead of keeping the fat in tiny pea-sized lumps. She would hold her hands up high, letting the flour and butter fall through her fingers from about 6 inches above the bowl, cooling as it fell. That aeration was half the magic. After 2 minutes, you should see coarse breadcrumbs. Not dough, not paste. Crumbs with visible flecks of butter still holding their shape. Those little butter pockets melt in the oven, creating steam that puffs the pastry into flaky layers. A food processor heats the dough through friction, ruining the texture before you've even rolled it. Your nan knew this by feel alone, and her pies proved it. Number 24. Creaming butter 20 minutes by hand. That wooden spoon worn down on one side in your nan's kitchen drawer, that was a Victoria sponge weapon. She creamed Stork margarine and caster sugar together for a full 20 minutes, stopping only to rest her arm. Not 5 minutes with a stand mixer, 20 minutes by hand. The mixture went from yellow to almost white, doubling in volume as she worked air into it bubble by bubble. That air was the only leavening a proper Victoria sponge needed. By 1960, a packet of Stork cost 6 and lasted 2 cakes. The sponges rose like clouds, light and tender, with a fine even crumb. Modern electric mixers whip air in faster, but the bubbles are bigger and less stable. They collapse in the oven. That's why modern sponges are dense and dry. Speed destroyed the texture. Number 23. Warming flour before baking. This one sounds mad until you understand the chemistry. Your nan would tip flour into a bowl and pop it in the oven on its lowest setting for 10 minutes before making pastry or bread. Cold flour from an unheated pantry in February sits at about 4 degrees. Warm it to 20 degrees and the yeast activates faster. The gluten develops more evenly and the butter in pastry stays in those distinct flakes instead of disappearing into the mix. A McDougall's bag of plain flour cost 10 pence in 1955 and she treated it like gold. Warming the flour took no extra work since the range was on anyway. Modern, centrally heated kitchens sitting at 21 degrees year-round mean we forgot this mattered. Nan's stone larder made warming essential. Skip this step and you can taste it in the final crumb. Number 22. Using butter wrappers to grease tins. Every wrapper from a ½ pound of anchor butter went into a tin by the stove. Your nan never threw them away. Before lining a cake tin, she'd pull one out, scrape the residual butter clinging to the waxy paper, and rub it inside the tin. Bottom, sides, every corner. One wrapper did 2 sandwich tins easily. The thin layer was perfect. Not too thick to pull, not too thin to miss a spot. Then dust with flour, tap out the excess, done. This cost nothing because the butter was already paid for. Modern cake release sprays cost £4 a can and contain silicone emulsifiers that 1960s home economists would have refused to use. A butter wrapper tin meant her cakes slid out cleanly every single time. That simple jar of folded wrappers was better than any aerosol. Number 21. Malt vinegar in scones. Here's one most modern bakers have never heard of. Your nan added half a teaspoon of Sarson's malt vinegar to her scone mix. Not lemon juice, not buttermilk, malt vinegar. The acetic acid reacted with the bicarbonate of soda to create an extra burst of carbon dioxide that lifted the scones an inch higher than baking powder alone could manage. The vinegar smell vanished completely in the heat of the oven. What remained was a soft, tender crumb and a tall, proud scone you could split with your thumbs. A bottle of Sarson's cost 9p and lived under the sink next to the Vim. By the time self-raising flour and commercial scone mixes took over in the 1980s, this trick was forgotten entirely. Mary Berry's early recipes still mention it. Most modern books don't. Number 20. Half lard, half butter in pastry. Short crust pastry in your nan's kitchen was never made with all butter. Never. The ratio was strict. 50 grams of Trex lard and 50 grams of butter to every 200 grams of flour. Butter gave flavor. Lard gave flake. Butter alone makes heavy, short pastry that cracks when you roll it. Lard alone tastes savory and greasy. Together, they produced pastry so tender it shattered when you cut it with a fork. A block of Trex cost a shilling in 1962 and lasted a month of Sunday pies. Food scientists at Birmingham University confirmed in 2008 that the different melting points of lard at 44 degrees and butter at 32 degrees create a two-stage layering effect in the oven. Modern all-butter pastry, promoted as luxury, actually delivers inferior flake. Your nan's economy blend was scientifically superior. The marketing just convinced us otherwise. Number 19. The tap test for cakes. First pattern break. Here's where science proves grandmother right. Every nan in Britain tapped the bottom of a cake to test if it was done. She'd turn it out onto a tea towel, quickly, and tap the base with her knuckle. A hollow sound meant cooked through. A dull thud meant back in the oven. Modern recipes insist on a skewer test, but the skewer test can lie. A cake with an underdone pocket in the middle can still produce a clean skewer if you insert it in the wrong spot. Acoustics don't lie. Food scientists at the University of Nottingham studied this in 2015 and found the hollow resonance indicates moisture has evaporated from the crumb, meaning the starches are fully set. The tap test is more reliable than timers, thermometers, or skewers. Your nan knew this through generations of passed-down wisdom, not lab coats. She taught it to her daughters with one knuckle and 30 years of experience. Number 18. Grease-proof paper collars for fruit cakes. A proper Christmas cake takes 4 hours in the oven. Without protection, the top burns black while the middle stays raw. Your nan's solution cost nothing. She'd double-wrap the outside of the tin with brown paper, tied with string, and tape a tall grease-proof collar above the rim standing 4 inches proud. The brown paper insulated the sides. The grease-proof collar caught the rising batter without scorching the top. She'd even lay a disc of greaseproof with a hole cut in the center on top of the cake to deflect direct heat. A proper Christmas cake from November would feed everyone through January. Fruit cakes cost pennies to make, but pounds to ruin. The paper collar method was the difference. Modern tins with built-in silicone liners never worked the same. The brown paper was insulation. That was the real genius, and most modern bakers have no idea it existed. Number 17. The cold marble slab for pastry. If your nan was serious about pastry, she had a marble slab. Her mother before her probably had one carved from a scrap piece of a cathedral renovation. Marble stays cold, wood warms with your hands. That temperature difference is everything. Roll pastry on wood and the butter starts melting into the flour within seconds. Roll it on marble and the pastry stays cold enough to keep those distinct fat layers intact. For hot water crust pies and puff pastry, the slab was non-negotiable. Second-hand marble slabs in the 1950s cost about 3 shillings at auction, or were pinched from demolished Victorian sculleries. Your nan chilled hers in the pantry overnight before Christmas pie day. You can substitute a frozen baking tray, but nothing holds cold quite like a properly chilled marble slab. Professional pastry kitchens still use them for this exact reason. Number 16. Tea-soaked fruit overnight. Before cheap dried fruit became reliably soft, your nan soaked her sultanas and currants in cold black tea overnight before any Christmas cake or bread pudding. The tannins in the tea plumped the fruit, rehydrating it without adding sweetness. By morning, the raisins had doubled in size, glossy and soft. Drained and folded into batter, they stayed suspended throughout the cake instead of sinking to the bottom, that great disappointment of every poorly made fruitcake. A cold cup of Tetley left over from breakfast did the job. Cost? Nothing. The alternative was fruit that stayed hard and tough through 6 months of storage, ruining every slice. Modern recipes tell you to soak fruit in brandy or rum, which is lovely but expensive. Tea did the same job through water chemistry. Your nan was doing molecular gastronomy before Heston Blumenthal was born. Number 15. Homemade buttermilk from milk and vinegar. Real buttermilk, the liquid left from churning butter, disappeared from British shops in the 1960s. Supermarkets replaced it with cultured buttermilk at 90p a carton. Your nan never bought it. She made her own. 250 millilitres of ordinary milk, 1 tablespoon of white vinegar, stir and wait 10 minutes. The milk curdled slightly and acidified, producing the exact same reaction with bicarbonate of soda that real buttermilk does. Scones, soda bread, pancakes, all perfect. Some supermarkets now sell tiny tubs of acid for this purpose at £1 each. Your nan used vinegar that cost a penny a splash. The chemistry is identical. Lactic acid and acetic acid both lower the pH enough to activate bicarb. Nobody sold you anything. You fixed your own milk. That's real cooking, and it's been lost to an entire generation raised on sealed cartons. Number 14. Corn flour in Victoria sponge. Second pattern break. This one sounds like heresy until you try it. When your nan made a Victoria sponge, she replaced 2 tablespoons of plain flour with 2 tablespoons of corn flour. Corn flour has less protein than wheat flour, which means less gluten development, which means a softer, more tender crumb. Researchers at Campden BRI, the British Food Research Institute, confirmed in 2019 that this substitution produces cakes with 34% higher moisture retention and 22% finer crumb structure. It's the actual science behind what Nan called my little trick. Brown and Polson corn flour cost 6p a box in 1962 and lasted a year in the pantry. Modern all-flour sponges dry out in 36 hours. Nan's sponge stayed moist for 4 days under a glass cake dome. You'll never find this in a standard McDougall's recipe, but every WI competition judge knew it by heart. Number 13. Homemade candied peel. That little glass jar on your nan's baking shelf wasn't Tate and Lyle. It was her own candied peel, made from the orange skins the family had already eaten. She boiled the peels 3 times in fresh water to remove the bitterness, then simmered them in equal weights of sugar and water until translucent. The peels dried on a wire rack for 2 days. The result? Candied peel that tasted of actual oranges, not the plastic chemical sweetness of shop-bought. A bag of shop peel cost £1 in 1960 and tasted industrial. Homemade peel cost nothing because the oranges were already eaten. Waitrose now sells artisan candied peel for £6.50 per 100 grams. Your nan made a pint jar for free from kitchen waste. It went in Christmas cake, Simnel cake, Bath buns, hot cross buns. The flavour difference is enormous. Number 12. Glycerine for moist cakes. Here's the one the Ministry of Education didn't want your mum learning. Glycerine, a byproduct of soap making, was a common baking ingredient until 1987 when it was quietly dropped from school-home economics textbooks. Officials claimed it was too chemical for young bakers. The truth? It worked too well, and commercial cake manufacturers wanted to protect their market. Your nan added 1 teaspoon of glycerin to every large cake batter. It bound with water molecules, preventing them from evaporating during baking and storage. Cakes stayed moist for a full week. A bottle from Boots cost 10p and lasted 3 years. Commercial cake manufacturers still use glycerine today for exactly this reason. They just don't label it prominently. When schools stopped teaching it, one more piece of home baking knowledge vanished. Now, we pay £4 for shop cake that stays moist because of, you guessed it, glycerine. Number 11. Ground rice in shortbread. Every Scottish nan knew this, and most English ones did too. Replacing a quarter of the flour in shortbread with ground rice transforms the texture completely. The rice particles are coarser than flour particles, creating tiny air pockets that give shortbread its characteristic sandy bite. Without it, shortbread is just hard biscuit. With it, it crumbles beautifully on the tongue and melts as you chew. Whitworth's ground rice cost 5p for a pound box and stored for a year without going off. Walker's commercial shortbread still uses this method in their original recipe. Most modern home recipes substitute semolina, which works, but ground rice gives a finer texture that dissolves on the tongue. Try making shortbread without it and you'll taste the difference instantly. This is why your nan's shortbread melted and the supermarket version snaps like window glass. Number 10. Black treacle and bicarb in gingerbread. Your nan's gingerbread was soft, dark and deeply flavoured in a way you can't buy anywhere now. The secret? Black treacle, not golden syrup, reacted with bicarbonate of soda in a specific way. The natural acidity of black treacle activated the bicarb without any other acid needed. The reaction produced carbon dioxide that lifted the batter, while the treacle's molasses darkened it to that characteristic almost black colour. Fowler's black treacle cost 9p a tin in 1958. The whole tin weighed a pound and lasted 6 gingerbreads. The kitchen smelled of Christmas for hours on baking day. Modern gingerbread recipes use golden syrup, which is sweeter but far less acidic, so recipes bodge in lemon juice or vinegar as a workaround. Your nan's method was simpler and produced a better flavour because the molasses themselves carried the depth. Yorkshire Parkin was built on this single chemistry trick. Number 9. Stout in Christmas cake. Third pattern break. Controversy for the teetotalers. Your nan poured half a pint of Guinness or Mackeson's stout into her Christmas cake batter. Not brandy, not rum, stout. The dark bitter beer added a depth of flavour that alcohol alone couldn't match, and the dissolved carbon dioxide helped leaven the dense fruit mixture. A bottle of Mackeson's cost 8p in 1963. Half went in the cake, half went to nan. The alcohol cooked off completely during the 4-hour bake. What remained was the roasted malt flavour that made her cake taste like absolutely nothing from the shops. The Women's Institute recipe books from the 1950s are full of stout cake variations. The flavour compounds in stout hop oils, malted barley sugars, yeast proteins actually enhance the perception of spices. Cinnamon tastes stronger, nutmeg is rounder, cloves sit deeper, all from a splash of beer your granddad was going to drink anyway. Number 8. Semolina dusting for crisp pastry bottoms. The soggy bottom, Mary Berry's greatest fear and your nan's solved problem. Before loading a pie with wet filling like steak and kidney or stewed apple, your nan dusted the base of the pastry with semolina. 2 teaspoons, spread thin with the palm of her hand. The semolina absorbed juices before they could soak into the pastry, creating a barrier layer. As it absorbed liquid, it turned into a thin gel that crisped in the oven. Pie bases were golden, never soggy. A bag of semolina cost 4p in the 1950s and lasted months in the pantry. Modern bakers use breadcrumbs or blind baking, both of which work but aren't as effective. Semolina's fine grain and high protein content make it the superior absorber. This is why your nan's rhubarb tart had a crisp bottom and your supermarket pie doesn't. Number 7. Warming eggs to room temperature. Your nan never used eggs straight from the cold pantry. She'd take them out an hour before baking, or if rushed, submerge them in warm water for 3 minutes. Cold eggs shock warm batter, curdling the butter and sugar mixture into a lumpy mess. Room temperature eggs emulsify smoothly, holding the mixture stable as you add flour. The difference shows in the final cake, smooth versus split, fine crumb versus uneven holes. In 1960, a dozen eggs cost 3 shillings, and wasting even one was unthinkable. Modern recipes casually say room temperature eggs, but rarely explain why. Your nan knew the physics without knowing the word. Egg whites also whip to greater volume when warmed, creating taller meringues and fluffier sponges. A 3-minute warm water bath changes everything about the final bake. Number 6. Salt in sweet baking. Every cake, every pudding, every biscuit in your nan's kitchen had a pinch of salt. Cerebos salt, in its distinctive blue tin, lived on the shelf with sugar and flour. Salt doesn't make sweet things salty, not in the quantities used. What it does is suppress bitterness and enhance perceived sweetness. Food scientists at Purdue University confirmed in 2011 that 0.3% salt in a sweet batter increases perceived sweetness by up to 20%, while reducing bitterness from ingredients like cocoa or treacle. That meant your nan could use less sugar, saving precious rationed sugar during lean years, while the cake tasted sweeter. A tin of Cerebos cost 4p and lasted 6 months. Modern shop cakes are often undersalted, which is why they taste one-dimensional despite the sugar content. Nan balanced her cakes without knowing the chemistry. She just knew they tasted right. Number 5. Camp coffee in chocolate cake. 4th pattern break. Your nan kept a bottle of Camp Coffee essence, the one with the Highland Soldier on the label, on her baking shelf. She never drank it as coffee. She used it in chocolate cake. A tablespoon of Camp Coffee added to chocolate batter intensified the cocoa flavor dramatically. Coffee and chocolate share flavor compounds. Both contain pyrazines and methylfurans. The coffee enhances the perception of chocolate without tasting of coffee itself. Patterson's Camp Coffee cost £1 a bottle in 1955 and lasted 2 years in the cupboard. Chocolate cakes went from ordinary to unforgettable with that single tablespoon. This is why Nan's chocolate cake for birthday parties tasted deeper and richer than anything from a Mr. Kipling box. Modern bakers use espresso powder, which works, but Camp Essence with its additional chicory root was specifically suited to enhancing cocoa. The bottle is still in most shops today. Nobody knows what it's really for anymore. Number 4. Arrowroot glaze for fruit tarts. Your nan's strawberry tart had a glossy red glaze that never went sticky or wept. Not jelly, not apricot jam thinned with water. Arrowroot. She'd mix a teaspoon of arrowroot powder with a tablespoon of cold water, stir it into warm fruit juice or jam, and heat gently until it turned clear and thick. Brushed over fresh fruit, it set into a crystal clear glaze that kept strawberries looking fresh for a full 24 hours, even on a warm summer fete table. A packet of arrowroot from the chemist cost 6p in 1962. It came from tropical root crops and set far clearer than cornflour, making it the standard for fruit tarts. Modern bakeries use commercial glaze with preservatives that taste waxy. Arrowroot is pure starch. Clear as water, glossy as glass. Every Wisconsin fruit tart in 1965 had an arrowroot glaze. Today, most bakers have never even heard of it. Number 3. The copper bowl for egg whites. This is the one scientists recently confirmed no modern substitute can replicate. When your nan whipped egg whites for meringue or a soufflé, she used an unlined copper bowl. Her mother's bowl, blackened with age, polished with lemon and salt before each use. The chemistry is real. Copper ions from the bowl bind to conalbumin, a protein in egg whites, creating a more stable foam that doesn't overwhip or collapse. A 2012 study at the Royal Society of Chemistry confirmed that copper bowl whites hold 40% more air than stainless steel and stay stable 30% longer. A new copper bowl cost £2 in 1960. Serious money, but it lasted generations. A modern Le Creuset copper bowl costs £180 and most bakers don't know why it exists. Plastic and glass bowls produce flat, weepy meringues by comparison. The chemistry is literally locked inside that copper. Nan's meringue stayed stiff and glossy for hours. Yours, made in a glass bowl, collapsed by tea time. This isn't sentiment. This is verified chemistry most modern bakers have forgotten entirely. Number 2. Homemade marzipan with raw egg. Your nan made marzipan from scratch for her simnel and Christmas cakes. Ground almonds, icing sugar, caster sugar, a squeeze of lemon juice, and 1 raw egg yolk. The yolk bound the paste without making it sticky, added richness, and kept the marzipan pliable for rolling. A shop tube of marzipan in 1965 cost £1 and tasted of almond essence and chemicals. Homemade marzipan tasted of actual almonds. The raw egg worried no one. Fresh eggs from the milkman, cooked only by the surrounding cake over months of maturation in the tin. Modern food safety rules eliminated this practice in the 1990s, replacing it with pasteurized egg substitutes that taste hollow and dry. Commercial marzipan uses glucose syrup and almond essence. Real marzipan uses real almonds and real egg. The texture is incomparable. This is why a proper Christmas cake from 1955 tasted entirely different from anything you'll eat today. And finally, in first place, number 1. Lemon zest rubbed into sugar. This was the secret weapon in every skilled nan's cake. The technique that turned ordinary sponge into something unforgettable. Before creaming butter and sugar, your nan would grate the zest of a lemon directly onto the caster sugar in the bowl. Then she'd rub the zest into the sugar with her fingertips for a full minute, crushing the oil glands against the sugar crystals. The sugar turned pale yellow and released an aroma that filled the whole kitchen. That single minute extracted every drop of essential oil from the lemon peel and bound it to the sugar, where it stayed stable through the entire bake. Compare this to simply adding zest to the batter, where the oils evaporate in the oven heat. Or to using lemon essence, which tastes of cleaning product. A lemon cost tuppence in 1960, and its zest transformed a plain sponge into something your family begged for. Modern baking books still say add the zest to the batter. Your nan rubbed it into the sugar first. That single minute is the difference between a nice cake and a cake people remember 50 years later. It's the lost secret that defines British home baking at its peak. Patience, attention, and the stubborn belief that the best ingredient is always the one you prepared properly yourself. Here's my challenge. Try one of these this week. Just one. The lemon sugar rub, the tea-soaked fruit, the salt in your next sponge, or the stout in your Christmas pudding. Then come back and tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if your nan was just being old-fashioned, or if she actually knew something we forgot. I tested these, and I cannot go back. My flour gets warmed before every bake now. I rubbed lemon zest into sugar last Sunday, and my neighbour asked for the recipe. Share which one you're going to try in the comments. I want to know whose nan taught them the copper bowl trick, and whose mum still keeps a jar of butter wrappers by the stove. Because these weren't just baking secrets, they were wisdom that took 50 years to disappear. Your nan knew. Now you know too.